Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Old School Q&A. I'm Mod Sween, your host, and you can see I'm not joined by any Jagex mods. Instead, I'm joined by some playtesters. So this week, well today and yesterday, we've been running the Song of Yells playtest where we've been testing the Gauntlet and Zolcano. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Zolcano. Terrible, sorry. So I just asked you guys a few questions before we introduce the JMods. I'll start left to right if you want to introduce yourselves.
I'm Tharko.
I'm Cloud Badass, or Cloud on my hardcore.
I'm Sonic.
I'm DK Ho. I go by Fordayan and RuneScape.
Sweet, thank you. Welcome. Just a few questions about the playtesting. Not giving away any specifics of the content, but how have you found the experience in the office? Is Jagex HQ what you imagined it would be?
Yeah, the experience has been really good. We've been treated really well, and just the office in general is really, really nice place to be in. To be fair, the playtesting computers are awesome, and that whole area is just really cool.
It's always great to be here. I was here before for testing Theatre of Blood, and then when I got the opportunity to come back, it was a no-brainer. I love coming to meet other players. The experience, the playtesting, it's all fantastic. It almost makes you sad to leave at the end.
Yeah, it's been really nice. We've been fed really well. Got some good food. So the playtesting's been really fun. Like, it's nice to see content before it's released and get to experience it and have like a feedback that we can give on it, knowing before it goes out it's going to be better for people because we've got to get hands-on with it.
Yeah, so it's been really cool meeting JMods because it's been a game I've played for like 10 years or something, and they've all been really lovely. The fellow playtesters have been really nice. It's just been a great experience.
Sweet, cheers. A couple more questions. What content are you most looking forward to of the two you tested? The Gauntlet or Zolcano?
Wait, am I going first?
Yeah, I'll go left
Right.
to right again.
Looking at you, sorry dude. The Gauntlet is really, really good. Speedrunning that is going to be a lot of fun to do. Trying to get like under a certain amount of time that a few of us were struggling to do today and yesterday, but over the coming weeks I think a lot of people are going to be trying a lot to get those good times, and people are going to be going for the record for a while, I reckon.
Yeah, I found both were really good. I was more interested in the Gauntlet being a PVMer, and yeah, the replayability on it afterwards is going to be so great. There were so many different things in there that I liked without going into specifics, and I'm really excited for release just to go straight back into it again.
Sweet.
Yeah, Gauntlet. Looking forward to the Gauntlet the most. Like, it introduces a time-based content in Old School, like being against the time, which we've not really seen before. So it's like, instead of fighting against the boss and killing it over and over, you've got however long to take on the Gauntlet and do it as fast as you can, and you're under time pressure, which is something new to Old School. I think it's a good experience, but it still feels Old School.
Yeah, so even though I classify myself as a skiller, I still think the Gauntlet was my favourite thing because it has a lot of skilling aspects with like micro efficiency and that. And overall, there's a lot of depth into it. Like, we had feedback sessions with them about the Gauntlet and the Zolcano, and we could see the changes from Tuesday to today instantly. It's great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a bit off script, sorry. So overwhelmingly for the Gauntlet then, has it met all of your expectations? Do you think it will meet the expectations of the rest of the player base?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah, we gave some fantastic feedback as well. The JMods all took that on board. A lot of discussions, and the way that we actually gave feedback was we used existing pieces of content to illustrate the stuff we liked and didn't like, and then they've already got a visual representation of the stuff that we hold very dear and the stuff that we're looking towards in terms of like finesse, aesthetics, and things that we really enjoy in PVM, and they've started to integrate that into the minigame.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, the way we did feedback was good, and it was nice to see how quickly it got picked up on. Like, even between, it took less than a day for our feedback to be picked up on, and then we saw the changes, and it felt better to do.
Yeah, so just with feedback, they're really humble with taking in our criticisms and like things we like. So yeah, it's nice to see their response to it.
Do you want to tell the rest of the player base what testing at Jagex is like? How did your days look in terms of testing, feedback sessions? How do they look?
So we do, I don't know if it's like an hour, 2 hours of just basically just chucked in, playing the content, and then we did sessions where we'd sit around and everyone would give their feedback, and then basically after that, I think the guys worked on like coding in the changes that we suggested, and then we came back today and played the changed content, and then we got to see the changes in action and gave more feedback based on that. So yeah, that's pretty much how it went.
Cool. Just to address the chat, like everything you're saying seems to be overwhelmingly positive. Are we making you say these kind of things?
No.
It's all genuine opinion, yeah?
Gauntlet was genuinely really
No, it
good.
was genuinely good.
Gauntlet was great. Personally, I admit the Solcano has a lot of things it could have improved on
but it's
compared to the
slightly-
Gauntlet.
Yeah, it's repetitive, but it's a skilling boss. But you expect that to an extent, so it's going to be a while before it comes out. So that any of the feedback done today that we didn't like, it could also be addressed in that time.
The structure that we had as well when we came in, we weren't actually briefed about what we were going into face, and that was so Jagex could get an authentic representation of what it will be like for the player base when they play it on release. We would give our criticism, things that we liked, and then they'd change that, and we'd do Zulcano, and when we'd come back, we would then do the Gauntlet again with the changes. Yeah, this is great. Maybe change things here. Ask questions and those sorts of things. In terms of criticism, we didn't really have very much. We had to really delve deep to get there. But in terms of difficulty, I felt it could be a bit higher. And what I described as at the moment, I felt it was about 60% there in terms of difficulty. And I'd like to see that improve before official release.
Sweet. That's all the questions I've got for you. I'd like to thank you for joining us for the playtest and then joining on stream, and another thank you to the other 7 playtesters who aren't on the couch but are in the streaming room. So thank you very much.
No worries.
And
For having us.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been good.
sweet. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yep.
And I will ask you to leave, and I'll invite the rest of the JMods to jump on. If we could get that dwarf cannon video playing to make the transition look a bit smoother rather than seeing people. Thank you very much, guys. Hello again. This time I'm joined by Mod Bruno.
Hey.
Mod Tide.
Hello.
Mod Kieran.
You alright?
And Mod Ash.
Hello.
Hope you enjoyed that dwarf multi-cannon, homemade there, and particularly the turtle in the background. Bring back turtle cam.
They were cannoning the turtle, that's the problem.
Oh.
I know everyone's eager for us to get to questions, but I would like to go through the usual notices and points to make. You might be wondering what's happening with warding. So 3 weeks ago, we published a revised warding blog. Along that time, we announced our intention to poll the content in May. Well, the amount of feedback we got was astounding, so a big thank you for that. Across social media, talking to players internally, the survey we sent, all of that, we've got tens of thousands of pieces of feedback, suggestions and comments to get through. So we're going to take more time to revise the content and get rid of the likes of battle wards and OP armors, and then we'll poll the content. So no date attached to when we're going to poll it. It's not yet. We want to take time to go through the feedback you've given us and try and make the content what you want it to be. Then you'll have a chance to vote yes or vote no. Another thank you for the feedback. I think that's pretty much it. Another point as well. We are looking at publishing a public design document before the official blog release to give you more transparency on the input of the content. And we're also scoping how viable an ongoing test world for warding would be should it pass the poll. That kind of thing, so you've got more transparency and more insight into what warding will be before we poll it, and even then after, should it pass. Song of the Elves Rewards Blog 2. So we've said that at some point we'll be talking to you about additional rewards to come with Song of the Elves and Prif. We're aiming for that blog to be published tomorrow, with a poll next week, potentially the week after, depending on the amount of feedback you give us. Last notice is there will be no game update tomorrow. We announced this last week in the game update news post, and I think we covered it on the Q&A as well. There'll be a game update next week, Thursday the 16th, as per usual. That's it from me. Any other notices we got?
Well, let's jump into the questions, mate.
I will crack on with the questions, and it's quite a big one. Let's talk a bit about warding. Surprise Drop Bears asks, what are Jagex's plans for big updates if warding fails? And how much time would there be between polling and the potential launch date of warding?
So, second part of the question first.
Okay.
If warding does pass its poll, it will be the time it takes to get that skill ready. There's no way we'll be adding a skill into the game unless we get it to that point where we all feel very comfortable that it's ready to go. And probably more so than with any other update, really, we'll be taking that to the players. As you just mentioned, we're investigating whether we can have basically a beta going alongside the game so that players can actually test it before it gets ready to launch. And it'll certainly be the sort of thing that we're going to be iterating on and improving, taking the feedback before we get to the point of launching it into the game.
Also, from a practical point of view, getting the engine side of another entry on the high scores for another skill isn't the work of a moment.
So it's probably, like, all in all, it will probably be longer than the usual big update after a post. The skill's massive. If you compare it to something like Theatre of Blood, that took reasonably 4 or 5 months of development, the skill's going to be longer than that, for sure.
Mm.
So I think I mentioned this earlier, if we're looking at a comparison, if you're aware of, rather, RuneScape 3's mining and smithing rework, that was a long, ongoing effort with lots of public participation in design documents and beta worlds open for specific times. If warding does pass and we get to that point, I envisage very much the same. So in terms of the first question, what are our plans for big updates if warding fails?
Well, in that case, we'd be doing what we usually do. The same way we originally ended up with pitching warding at RuneFest, the same way we pitched Theatre of Blood, Kebos, etc. We'll go to the community, we go to our own ideas, the community's, as I said, the community's ideas, and we'll pick what we want to go forward with and pitch it to you guys, the players, as usual. We have a process for doing that. We've got a huge backlog full of those ideas already, potential big updates that, well, I mean, we've been looking at it recently anyway because we need to start considering what we want to announce when it comes to RuneFest. So, you know, exciting times.
Sweet. Next question is from Leyland. Are there any chances of Arceus Spellbook teleports being added to Portal Chamber or Portal Nexus?
Maz made that Nexus expandable for this kind of purpose, so we should be able to add as much there as you like. I'm not sure what the limit is, but I gather it's a lot higher than the old chambers were. The Portal Chambers can do, but to have lots more of those, you end up needing to have lots and lots and lots of rooms, which is partly why I invented the Nexus. So that's not the direction we'd prefer to go. The Nexus is intended for this kind of thing.
Nobody think of any reasons why we wouldn't?
No, I think it'd be quite nice to do.
Really?
Maybe.
There might be too many teleports on there, but I mean, you can just not put them on there if you don't want them to. You can also very easily order everything on the Nexus itself, so it's not you complaining because you're getting spammed by Arceus teleports.
Well, to put something there, you'd have to, well, pay a lot of runes, so one hopes you intended to do it.
So we can make a note about one to add then. Jason asks, can you make supplies in the Theatre of Blood supply chest only usable and tradable within the raid, like how they are in Raids 1? And it gives a bit more context. So it's possible to get 100 stamina potions per hour using these supply chests, which is OP for Iron players. Other players then supported this suggestion, mentioning that players don't have to grind agility for Marks of Grace or raise the herb lore. So what are the thoughts on that? This is more of an integrity thing.
Well, now that I rewrote a while ago how we do drinking of potions, it's a lot easier to do, as we could just make untradeable versions that are slightly different. So we could do it. I mean, if it's something we feel we should do, I'm happy to. That really is. It's down to the community on that one.
Okay.
Whether we feel it's needed and warranted.
Of course, if one player has said it's OP, doesn't mean it is OP. We'd want to take a wider look at it. But if we can do it,
yeah.
It would link nicely to a request I got earlier about how resources like that are handled if you die in there. Like in Chambers of Xeric, if you've got the custom potions or the custom food of the chambers, when you die, those items are on the ground and your teammates can use them to carry on the good fight. Whereas in Theatre of Blood, the potions, what you've got, they're yours. You keep them because it's, well, in the same way you keep everything else of yours that gets put in a gravestone. So if they were unique items, we could treat them differently without feeling we were kind of stealing off of you.
Okay. So not a yes, not a no. We can do it, and it could tie into nicely to Ash's request, but we need to see if we want to do it first of all. Pause asks, can beginner clue scrolls get an untradable reward at a certain completion count, like other tier scrolls do?
I think that'd be very nice. But the thing is, what would you want? This is the question. Because you already have your big casket, your scroll.
Do you guys remember how long it took to get us 100 Master Clue item? Took a while.
So big kind of caskets on your boots, perhaps.
Could be.
Yeah.
Or maybe a big casket that you
Is this when the
fit
casket
in.
head came
I
alright?
was about to suggest a casket head.
Casket head. One casket body. Have your arms going out the side.
So again, yes, we can do it, but we'd like the players to suggest something we could do. Okay. OQ asks, when can we expect an update on account security, which was alluded to in the Big Questions blog that was released on March 19th. So if you recall that blog, I think it's !big blog. That might pop it up, it might not, let's see. It was, well, we covered lots of things like polling and account security, customer support. And in the customer support section, written by the customer support managers themselves, they announced their intention to publish like a series of 4 blogs, each covering different things like live chat, account security offerings. We expect the first blog to come in the coming weeks. It's just we're making sure that everything's being said is accurate. It needs to be translated for RuneScape 3's other language audience as well. Then it'll be published. I don't think the first one is concerning account security. Instead, it's talking more about the service you get from customer support. And I think the second blog in that series will be dealing with account security. So we are still doing it, and I'll try and get some more precise dates to communicate that to you. Wild Gnome Child asks, the area in the chat box which accesses the keyboard is too large. So this is mobile, I assume. Could you decrease the size of the area so that it's possible to properly tap through the chat box to move? And then the player offers the area where the RSN is as a suggestion of doing so.
That's on the list of future polls already.
Ah, excellent. So that's a yes. NoXE asks, can we get the ability to remove healthy crops from patches? When getting a farming contract and you've planted something earlier, you have to wait for the first crop to grow. This will make you lose the planted seed, of course.
In the initial launch of farming, you could dig up crops that were healthy but not fully grown. The trouble with that was that you could therefore get lots and lots of seeds, because people had lots of seeds, and plant them, dig them up, plant them, dig them up, plant them, dig them up, get XP each time, and effectively grind up the skill as fast as you felt like buying seeds. We would prefer not to bring that kind of thing back. So maybe if we took away the XP for planting seeds, then we could start doing that kind of thing.
I think that's a harder sell for that little potential gain.
If that happened as well, you would have to look at the farming contracts as well. Because if you're preloading your patches, if you get something that you haven't planted, then you can just dig it up and put in a new one, so it'd be even quicker getting your packs of seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds like a no. Thank you for your responses. Beatrix asks, can you increase the elite clue drop of Alchemical Hydra to 165 like Vorkath? You can remove the hard clue drop. It doesn't make sense that Hydra boss drops elites at a much lower rate than a lower level boss like Cerberus.
It is a bit over the top rare, isn't it? So, yeah. Seems entirely reasonable to me.
Cool. I'll add that one then. Glover asks, can the banker tell us how much money we have scattered around RuneScape, such as 7 million in Kingdoms, 200k in Nightmare Zone, etc.?
That would be very nice. Because if you go into the GE, you haven't got enough money, you want to buy something, and you're thinking, where am I going to get this cash from?
It's more like, I bet this is probably someone who's at the Sand Casino. Who's just like, I've spent all my dollar from my bank.
Yeah.
Where have I got any spare change? Oh, I've left them in the Kingdom. Let's go over there.
People saying that's nice for hackers.
That as well. Like, if you're a hacker and you hack someone, you're going to look at that. This guy has like 10 mil here, 3 mil there. Then you just get fully cleaned. And it's not a whole lot of gain. So I'm not too for it.
Could we hide said information from banker behind bank pin?
Well, if they're going to be able to steal money out the bank, or indeed Miscellanea, they'd need a bank pin anyway. This would just save them going all the way to Miscellanea to see what's in there, which they might not bother doing if they don't know there's something in there.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like we've come to a consensus, and it's probably worth a little discussion. Ellie Forehead asks, can the option to cook a poison Karambuan be moved to hotkey 2, and the option to cook a normal Karambuan be moved to hotkey 1? This makes it so you don't accidentally cook a poison Karambuan when pressing spacebar in the cooking menu.
It has been like that for about 18 months. I'm sorry to hear people are still getting the wrong one by maybe trying to start before they've worked out how the feature works.
This is one of the problems where if you change it, people will start going the other way because that's how it's been for 18 months.
That's roughly where I am on it. So yeah, we can, but it's going to be more confusion in the meantime. And really, it does have a hotkey, so perhaps you're all right if you just remember how to cook a Karambuan. And it sounds like you do it enough that you'll get the practice in.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. I can't remember, well, I can't remember, I didn't make a note rather, of who suggested this one. Could we make it so that when you're teleblocked, NPCs can't teleport you, and then the player offers an Elder Chaos Druid as an example?
There'd also be the Dark Mage in the low-level wilderness who takes you to the Abyss. He doesn't respect teleblocks at the moment. That would be, I think, a more significant change, because while Elder Chaos Druids only move you around a bit, this is a teleport that gets you out of the wilderness, so it comes up a bit more.
Or teleblocking yourself so the Chaos Elemental can't tele you back and forth.
You wouldn't love that for Abyssal Demons.
That would be too.
So where are we with that one? Sure?
But I don't think it's consistent. It'd be hard to make it consistent.
Okay.
I think if we did it to the Abyss entry, that would be also more controversial, given that it never was like that in the earliest days of the Abyss existing. And I don't think it ever has been in this version of the game anyway.
Cool. Moving on. This is, forgive me if I butchered the wording here. Is it possible that when fishing with one tool in your inventory, i.e. a harpoon, that you'd only be shown the harpoon spot rather than a net spot? This makes it easier for players to fish on mobile.
With a lot of effort.
Okay.
Well, they know what it's missing if we don't do it then. But no, the tech's fine, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be an easy one, but I think we could pull it off.
It would be a nice quality of life for desktop as well.
Yeah, it would be nice not to have to right click. But I'm just trying to think, are there any fishing stuff that use the same fishing style for both options?
I did try to give that some thought for putting in the
I think
question
there might
list.
because there's river fishing and sea fishing.
Well, if you rocked up to a fishing area with both a lobster cage and a harpoon, you'd need to see both options.
Yeah.
And the code would need to handle that you were in that situation. On the other hand, you're probably doing it on purpose if you rock up with that, so you don't mind that you're having to right-click.
Okay, so we'll add that to the backlog, but it needs to be scoped. It sounds like a big job.
It is.
More of a discussion topic here from King Flipstar. Could you please take a critical look at the current level 75 weaponry and change or raise the level requirement based on damage output? Currently, we have weapons like the Twisted Bow and Toxic Blowpipe with the same level requirements as the Slayer Staff Enchanted or the Trident of the Seas, even though they out-DPS them in the majority of situations. So as an aside, I've kind of added, is the issue the requirement or the actual balancing?
Well, that's where I am as well. I was like, changing the requirement of the Twisted Bow from 75 to 90 might be accurate, or whatever requirement you go for. But most people with it are 90 plus anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure you're solving much of a problem, but it maybe would be nice to make it more representative of where its power is at.
What it would do is kind of establish more of a cap of how strong something between 75 and 90 could be for future content. But I think the reason the player wants it, and the reason why some people in the chat might want it, is because it implies some sort of balancing towards it, or they wanted to see it balanced rather than the levels.
Yeah. It makes it represent what it reasonably does, right?
And there would be some things that do need nerfing, like you said, specifically that blowpipe.
That's a
Blowpipe nerf is a big topic in and of itself.
One we need? Is it a topic we needed to touch upon?
Well, it's one way of addressing the point that the player raised in this question.
Okay. So as a takeaway from this, then let's review how strong weapons are, and is it a case of rebalancing in the level requirements, or whether it's damage output?
Potentially,
Yeah. OSRS Tone asks, can we get a faster, more click-intensive way to make cannonballs? The current method is so slow. I actually do recall asking this question before, so apologies for that one. I think the takeaway was that we wanted to do it in player in-house, perhaps.
There's been a few different proposals on this one. I think one idea was where you make a special furnace in your POH, and you can use that one for fast cannonball making. But
Another was to bolt on some kind of ammo mold to the blast furnace itself in Keldagrim.
Yeah.
What I'd want to see if we were to do it is that it have substantially more requirements than the existing method. Not just in terms of what you do to do the process, but in terms of who can do it. Since I'd like this one to be a bit more restricted to keep bots away from it.
Could be put behind a little mini dwarf quest as well.
Could well be, as long as it's not something that you can create an account, go through Dwarf Cannon quest and head off to do quickly.
That's true.
Cool. So the
Wouldn't
answer
have
is
to be low-level smithing either.
Yeah.
so the answer is maybe, but we need to think of the right way to do it, and so it wouldn't be too abusable.
Could always decrease the time depending on your smithing level as well.
Okay. It's a shout.
Making it reward smithing level would be nice, especially as not many things scale on that.
So earlier we spoke about adding stuff to the backlog, and this question is, could we publicly publish the backlog?
we've talked about this before, haven't we?
Yeah.
In various ways. It's something I've always liked the idea of, because I like the idea that we're fully open and that the community can see a lot of the stuff that we've got in flight.
And it ain't exactly secret, considering it comes off players in the first place.
Yeah, I just lost my mic.
Ooh,
And we talked to them about it anyway, right? So
yes.
I mean, we always come on here and talk to players about stuff that we're working on. So I don't see any harm in the players being able to see that publicly anyway. And I think it would actually help to make it clear, because so many of the questions we end up getting on here are, where's this project at? And if it was public, you can see that, and that would benefit all of us.
Well, they'd also see, of course, that just gets on the backlog doesn't mean it moves very fast.
Yeah.
Like that one about cannonballs has been there for a while too, I believe. But I got no problem with people seeing what's on there. I'm just aware that we would have the ongoing dialogue about why is this on there but that one didn't make it? Why is this one so low down? Why is that one the one chosen when this one hasn't been? It's not much different to what we get now, but since there'd be a lot more information to query, I do think we get a lot more requirement to justify every detail about what's there, what's not there, and explain on demand what each one of them means, when sometimes things are added to the backlog without that level of detail, such as something involving better cannonballs for people who've earned it.
We'd have to come up with a system that works as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be that we publish absolutely everything, but we could come up with maybe a version that we do.
I can't imagine there being anything on there that we don't want players to know that they've suggested anyway.
Yeah.
If I recall rightly, before Aiza left, he was looking at, so we use Jira, integrate, if it's possible to integrate a Trello board with the Jira jobs, which I believe is what Fortnite do. I'm not sure where he got with that, so I might drop him a message and see. Yeah, like you said, we probably want to frame the stuff a bit differently, so it could be a separate Jira board to the one we work with internally.
There are more community staff than there used to be, so we've got more scope to discuss that kind of thing with players than we used to have. I think taking what's currently there and just dumping it to players would not be as informative as it sounds, given how many things there are not well explained or not even given much thought but got popped on as a thing to think a bit more about later. But if we had somebody who'd got the time to polish it, make it clear what is actually being considered or what is not being considered, then it would be a much more informative resource for people.
And it can also help guide people as well, because they can see what's there and give some direction. Say, this one's already been suggested. I'm not going to suggest that. Or instead, they just say, I want this one, vote it up, sort of thing, instead. So I think it could be a really useful tool if we can get to a position where we feel it's a good thing.
It sounds a bit like
In a way
feature
that we
creep.
can make it work.
If we want to start allowing players to vote up the stuff, then it's feature
I
creep a
mean,
bit.
I don't mean necessarily on
Yeah.
the actual system, but instead of saying, can we have this, say, I like this idea and make it clear publicly.
Sure,
that they
okay,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
idea.
Cool. I'll see what we got with that and try and bring it back. Level 3 Skilling asks, could a chef's hat be added to a free-to-play store? There is one in the fine clothing shop in Varrock, but the stock is always 0. This would allow level 3 skillers into a cooking guild, and the player does acknowledge that it is indeed a very niche update for a free-to-play Iron Man skiller. But would it take a lot of development time to give him a hat?
No.
Well,
wouldn't
changing the clothes, the shop stock is itself quite easy, although I don't recall that one being available to free to play.
No, you usually get it from your goblins, don't you?
Yeah,
Could always
which, hence the problem for this skiller, I'm guessing.
could put it in the beginner clues, possibly as a reward for them.
Okay. Lazy Inferno asks, can the report screen be redesigned for mobile? Currently it's hard to make a correct report. I did look to see if we've asked this before. Apologies if I have done.
Sounds good. I think it's going to need multiple screens rather than one that tries to do all stages of the report simultaneously, because we already increased the spacing for people on mobile, and frankly there's just a lot of options and it's still a bit too hard to hit the right one.
Okay. I'll go over the chat questions now. So thank you to Mod JD, who's actually manning that upstairs. What are your thoughts on roaming revs? It could let players get rev items without locking down a world, and they could wander around the wilderness.
I know there might be people who are nostalgic for it, but do people like it?
The thing about how it used to be in 2008 is that it was done when PvP was removed from the wilderness. So what people thought of it would be a little skewed by that, because what they were getting was these wandering ghosts instead of the game that they had known, loved and paid for so long. That does not incentivize them to like the ghosts very much. The cave, when it came out in like 2011, was plenty popular, which is what we're trying to recreate. I don't mind the idea of having a few roaming ghosts in addition to it, although we might want to keep them away from places that people actually do go in the wilderness.
How about Revenant Worlds? So maybe you had 3 or 4 themed worlds that had the roaming revs, and that way you can avoid them if you don't care. But if you do want that feature, and or maybe it's a driver for people to fight over them as well. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind if it was a world, but I really didn't like the fact that as a little noob walking around the wilderness, then suddenly like 3 leveled 100 ghosts just one hit me. That was
Every time, mate, you're doing a clue, and all of a sudden, like this swarm of knights came after you.
Yeah. You try to run away, you can't, because they just range you.
That vampire green dragons, man.
Also, they were slightly unusual in how they navigated, in that I was nearly caught by a Revenant Knight in, I think I was trying to do the Spirit of Summer quest or something. So I hid in a building, and the damn thing walked up to the door. I hid around the other side of the door, and it sidestepped and went through the door and came after me again. I forgot they could do that.
Instead of making them roam, keeping with the specific world, but could have like an event that pops up every so often, and so you could probably talk to the bounty hunter store person who will tell you where it is when it's available. So then it's kind of like a nice hotspot for people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it seems like there could be an appetite for revs outside the rev cave, but it's how we implement it. It seems like a natural segue into where we are with PvP and bounty hunter and that kind of work. So we do have a blog currently doing the rounds internally for feedback. Once it's got the pass from everybody in the Old School team, that's when we look to publish it, which we are hopefully doing so next week, I believe. And in that, we're going to tackle some issues affecting players to engage with PvP, as well as talking about the promised bounty hunter rework and also Mod Rock's work on Last Man Standing.
There's a bunch of different ideas in there. We've all been given feedback on it. A whole host of changes, etc. So hopefully it's what you're looking for.
I'll have to do a few more chat questions. Dang it, Nikki asks, can we have other skilling spells be automated, such as the superheat item? Automating Plank Make is such a nice call update, and I hope we can get similar treatment to other spells. Blast Furnace is still the best smithing XP per hour, so I think Superheat item would be a nice little extra alternative.
Since it would be slower than a player doing it manually, that should be fine. And we would make it slower than a player doing it manually.
Yeah.
Cool. I just noticed a player in the chat mentioned the coffee cup on the table.
Is that a reference by any chance?
He left it here.
I hadn't actually clocked it. Who?
I mean, it's as much as it's a funny joke, it's subpar effort because it's just the word Starbucks with a pen written on this cup.
Starbucks, no less.
It's fine, guys. We'll let it out in post.
But they still look very happy with themselves.
As for the severed foot that's come back again from last week,
This question is actually asked by somebody called Starbucks. And that's genuine. Can the Puro store receive a much needed revamp? Currently only allows you to buy one item at a time before closing the shop interface.
Oh, that's a hideous shop, that is.
yes, it is. And yes, it could be reworked.
Cool.
That's not necessarily a small thing to do to an interface, though. Interface work is almost never quick.
Okay. Again, we'll add it to the backlog, scope out
All right,
the work needed.
people asking for Group Iron Man, unless you've got a question coming up.
I don't have one, but I think the last time I was on the Q&A I spoke about Group Iron Man, but we'll
It
say the
goes
same.
on
About it every week,
Yeah.
but here's another group.
But we are actively having discussions about Group Iron Man. It is something we all know that you want to do. It's something that we want to do. We haven't got an ET on it because it's a technically challenging project, like a seriously challenging one. We've got no systems in the game currently that really do group players very well, especially permanently. So that's a technical challenge that is looking to be solved. There's other problems, like we need grouped high scores, so that's something we don't have currently. So there's a couple of different things we need to try and solve, but we've worked on a design. We know a lot of details that we want to push through. But yeah, once we know more, we'll have the information. We want to get it done because we all know it's a really nice feature and we see it every single week. So yeah.
And previously we said that the work required is similar or also requires the same work needed for clans. So is it fair to say that is in a similar vein, that we'd like to do it, but it's very technically challenging?
So the engine team is already working on recreating RS3's clan system for Old School. That will give us ultimately a clan system, so that's a bit of a win, but also means that we'd have a permanent grouping concept that we can use for Group Iron Man as well. That's the other reason they're doing it. We get multiple things from this. In fact, we think we can do other things with it as well for cross-world grouping. And it would have the advantage, once we've got an actual clan system, that mini-games that involve the temporary chat channels would no longer be disrupting your clan organisation every time you want to play them, which should be a nice sort of indirect update to Clan Wars, Theatre, Chambers of Xeric, etc. That said, backporting RS3's clan system to Old School is not a small thing. In fact, I believe the engine team started months ago. The first thing they had to do was rewrite quite a lot of our existing scripting language, the in-house scripting language, so that it could handle longs, something that we'd never had. You know how our stack size goes up to the 32-bit signed int, 2.147 billion. Now, that wouldn't be affected by this, but with the changes they're doing, we'd be able to have 64 bits data of other types, such as player UIDs, which means we'd be able to remember a player's ID more reliably across login sessions, which could bring improvements to things like Slayer partnerships, which are currently a bit frustrating for that. Another disincentive to spend a lot of dev time making them more useful, given that they keep falling apart on logout. Having changed that aspect of the language, they've also got to change the script interpreter so that it can handle the different data types associated with clans. I gather that's the next step and is a very big step. So we're going to have some playtests before that bit of it goes out. And then once we've got the language able to refer to clans, then they can knuckle down to the other huge part of it, which is actually creating the infrastructure and the central server that remembers one clan from another, so that all these commands have something to talk to. It's going to be a while. We don't have an ETA, and it will feel even longer waiting for it than just listening to me go on and on about it here and now.
Thank you very much. I do think the players did appreciate that, though, just hearing that it is being worked on.
As you say,
Say moving on. It doesn't say moving on. We're doing it wrong.
so this is
Fascinating.
it's a huge amount of engine work that is in progress. But as what you did touch upon is that unlocks more things than just clans and Group Iron Man, right? There are other features we can now do better because of it.
What it doesn't unlock is high scores for Group Ironman, which is something that we're going to have to continue working with the tech staff to try and get, because I think it would be rather sad to have Group Ironman without high scores. And but the process of getting it does not just automatically come from a copy of RS3's clan system. For what it's worth, we didn't intend for you to be linked to RS3's clans. Even if the infrastructure is the same, it would be like a separate save game, effectively. The clans of Old School would not link to the clans of RS3. We know that's inconvenient for some people, but we think it'll give us more flexibility overall, and if you really did want the same kind of clan, you could probably set it up manually.
Awesome, thank you. Back to the questions. Lunch Zero Guy says there are issues with the Abyssal Sire which could be addressed, and then proceeds to give us 4 of them in an essay form. I've chosen 2 of those, so let's start small. So the player mentions the inconsistency with HP compared to Slayer XP. So there's 600 HP with the respiratory systems and the boss, versus only 450 Slayer XP gained from killing the boss. Is that something we'd like to address?
We have precedent for giving some extra Slayer XP when a thing dies if the hit points associated with it don't reflect the amount of damage you've actually had to do to kill it. So that seems okay.
Cool. And the player also mentions the inability to deal damage during phase changes, and then the disappointment of seeing large XP drops with no damage.
That one's more problematic because the kind of phase changes it's going through are volatile to the extent that we can't have it executing other kinds of code while it's doing them, which means that it cannot handle your damage. Sorry.
Which would be the answer if I was to ask the question about phases during Grotesque Guardians. I imagine it'd be because of the same reason. Okay.
Yeah, it's challenging to try and make that work, especially from a finished boss going back and changing it.
Okay, well, hopefully one answer they're happy to hear, and the other one, at least they know the reason why. Just some random old guy asks, would you consider changing Warhammer requirements from attack to strength? And then it's linked me to an image he's mocked up, which offers the following points. Warhammers combine the traits of longswords and battle axes. They provide worse strength bonuses than the longsword counterparts, but to make up for that, they're also tragically as slow as battle axes. They're crush-based, which is supposed to make them useful at times, I guess. So I think the idea is that the player mentions that they're pretty crap. They are weaker than longswords and slower, or as slow as battle axes. So the player talks about it possibly creating a fun new meta for account builds.
It's not the first time that people have mentioned rebalancing, the standard set of weapons, daggers, longswords, so on and so on. And generally, we've ended up coming down in the position of like, well, it's always how it's been. Maybe it's a core part of Old School. Should we touch it? Should we rebalance those weapons? Scimitar is well known to be the best. So first we need to answer that question. Should we change them? Because then maybe we want to do more than just that, even make maces a little bit better or the other items as well. But I don't know, to be honest. I don't know.
Even if we try to rebalance, there would always be something that's better than others. I think it'd be impossible to make everything on parity. So I don't think it's worth the massive concerted effort of trying to rebalance everything, but I'm not opposed to creating new fun niches. Like this could lead to some new account builds in PvP, for example. That could be worth pursuing.
But would this mean that the Torx hammers will be done to like this as well?
I don't know.
Probably not, but I'm just thinking.
I still want to do 2 hits with Torx hammers.
That'd be pretty fun.
Just half the damage and do boom.
That would be
And they've now just risen in price, so because of that comment, probably.
See you, Cole.
I'll move on to the next question. Pickpocketing ham guards for easy clues is fun, all caps. Please add pickpocketing guards for medium clues. And then another player suggests pickpocketing heroes for hard clues and elves or Tsar for elite clues. Basically,
In what
increasingly,
fashion is it fun?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the player. But the,
I'm pretty sure you can't even left-click pickpocket them, can you? Or just roulette it?
Maybe if you hide attack options.
They
Well, that
have
is a
talk
talk option.
options, don't
Ah.
you?
So, fun aside, I think the question is getting at increasing availability of clues by thieving, the thieving skill.
I think the fun aspect of it is because you always get clues pretty quick. Really would be against adding like common elite clues, and if it was like even more than like a few hundred for an elite clue, it wouldn't be fun. No one's going to do that. So
What's the fastest way to get mediums at the minute? Bar buying implings.
Guards.
It's still guards.
Guards with a diary.
Yeah.
Is it still? Is it faster by catching manually in blinks? Like rather than purchasing them?
You can just camp the spawn, I guess,
yeah,
and it respawns fairly quickly, so probably quicker than guards still.
Catching imps is still the fastest. I mean, yeah, people seem to think it's catching, but it's still nowhere near the same speed as pickpocketing.
I think would be, yeah.
So yeah, it would be rebalancing like medium clues, but I don't know. I mean, they're quite important to an account because you have to do them to get ranger boots, and if you made them faster to obtain, you're impacting quite a valuable item right there. So I'd be cautious with changing it.
Arguably, we made them a little slower to obtain recently. I think you posted the exact rate change time.
Yep.
So maybe we've got a bit more leeway than we otherwise would have.
No.
On the other hand, by adding music clues, we sped up clues a little bit because when you get one of those, you just teleport to Falador and talk to the lady and play songs at her. So that probably doesn't take as long as some of the other ones would have done.
But then Elegant got more common now as well, so my God.
Well, it's got made substantially rarer for a week or so after the
Yeah.
update and then put back to roughly where it was before, if that's what you mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
rather than panic sell elegant.
So we're not opposed to adding fun ways of getting clue scrolls, but we don't want to jeopardize the rarity of certain items and cost of certain items. I think it's...
I'd be happy to add more ways that aren't necessarily faster
Yeah.
than what we already have.
Okay.
That'd be fine. I mean, I know people kill guards quite often for mediums. We could add them as a pickpocket obtainable item from guards. We just set a rate accordingly and just adds an alternative.
Okay.
I just like not to do it with knights because they get plenty of attention already.
Yeah.
But
Why not?
sorry.
Why not add them to chests that you lockpick from?
Potentially, they've not got much use. So,
And you don't often see people pickpocketing heroes of Ardoin, so it would be nice if there were a reason to do it.
Okay. Well, I'll take this one and think about it. The next question concerns kind of accessibility of the game. The broad question is, would a colorblind mode be feasible? So an entire mode that is colorblind friendly.
For the engine team, probably. For us, not so much, but we can change individual things in the way we did to the quest list and related side panels where we changed which shades of red and green were used. Players were generally accepting of that, apart from a few people who complained about headaches when it came out. So we can do more of that sort of thing, otherwise we're talking engine time.
Okay. Blue Bonnet asks, could we have make all added to the Anvil smithing interface, similar to how we have withdraw X or all in the bank interface?
the anvil, when you're smithing the actual items, yeah, that one, it does need it. But these aren't really quick jobs.
Would Tide like to talk about what it took to achieve for the gold crafting one?
As I said last week, with the gold crafting one, because of the way it worked, every single object has its own individual buttons, and because there's 1, 5, 10, X, you have to remove all of them, make one standardized button for each of them, and then you'd have to get the input from the buttons so that you know how many you need to make, and then when you've clicked on your button, you would then need to make sure you have the amount of resources for that amount of item, and then it would go on and make your items for you. And then...
It's a lot of work. Apologies if I was asked last week, by the way. I wasn't aware.
So was Group Iron Man. I wouldn't worry about it.
Sure. So a few players have asked this next question. What's the situation with RuneFest? The current situation is we hope to be able to announce stuff to you soon. We're still finalising contracts, dates, that kind of thing. So not much of an update, I'm afraid, but it is something we're working on internally, and we will share information with you as soon as possible. We understand why you want it as soon as possible, because you've got a lot of arrangements to make, particularly those of you coming from further afield.
I think we'd like to know too.
Oh yeah, we'd also like to plan our calendar around that. We'd have a few content pictures to get ready for. So I've got a few bits of art from the community, if you guys wouldn't mind seeing that. Would you be able to show us image 1? This is the one I coined it.
With a well-named image 1.
So this is called When You Forget to Bring a House Teleport. And it's by an artist named Varatu. You can find him on Twitter. It's VAARITU. So this artist has been doing some really good work lately. Did the one about Warcraft as well, in which Warcraft was covered in gold. And you can see the book the player is reading, How to Teleport for a Big Idiot.
That's quite nice.
Next image, image 2. So Legend Arts, we're all familiar with, has been doing some speed painting. This is Varrock.
That's insane.
It's really nice how it pops out at you.
And then the last one, image 3, is Falador, also from Legend Arts.
Yeah, that's a different style, that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very Bob Ross.
It is very cool.
I'm joking. Legend Arts is very keen to hear what places you want to see drawn next. So drop and follow and reply. Tell them what you want to see. Thanks for that. We'll go back to the Q&A. I'll go through the last of the chat questions I've got in the last few minutes we've got remaining. I suspect this has been asked before. Apologies again. So this is from SA Babe. Can we possibly have a place added into the POH to store/use the diary item teleports?
So like a diary armor set stand, I guess.
I quite like that.
It's like a mounted glory, but for the diary stand.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it if it was like a full armor set. That would be pretty cool looking.
Well, I like that display thing where you mount your skill cape and can still use its perks up there. One of those for the whole diary outfit is surprisingly tempting.
Would be very nice and very useful. But then you'd have to make it so you'd have to do all the easy ones to be able to put the full set on and all that hard.
Yeah, I would like it for it to be based on level, not just mix and match, because that would look weird.
It adds to the POH better, is one thing, but...
Also, I think if we had to make it mix and match and show the things, we'd run out of possible combinations and be unable to do it.
I think players seem generally supportive of that from the chat. So yeah, we'll investigate that.
One other thing I would like to bring up, that if someone did go to your house and use it, you would probably have to make it so they require the diary requirement to be able to use those teleports.
Yeah.
We already do that on the capes, right? So
We usually require that you have access to something. Like, you can't go through somebody's portal to Mauritania if you haven't done Priest in Peril.
So the usual checks in place. I just saw a question in the chat pop up. So Kieran, you're intending of announcing Theatre of Blood drop rates soonish. I'm not putting you on the spot to do it right now. Don't worry.
At the rates...
50%.
You get it, you don't.
Basically.
So the player asked, when we do, could you explain, there you go, explain deaths in the theatre in comparison to a purple? So how are the rates affected by deaths? Are we going to go into that level of detail, or just...
I mean, deaths are the main thing that affect it.
Okay.
That's about it. Just don't die. That is the core of maximising the chances of getting a drop.
Don't leech either, please.
Don't die for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's about it. I mean, the core system, I know one big question people always have is about the MVP status. You don't get any extra benefit for doing PvP directly. So if there are 5 people on the team, let's say you do 21% of the total damage, or you have 21% of the points that you've accrued, and the points come from basically doing damage to each of the monsters.
Yeah.
And actually participating, and you lose points when you die, sort of thing. If you have 21% of the points, you have 21% of the chance of getting the overall special loot. While the people who don't have 21%, maybe 19%, have 19%. So there's not a huge difference. It's just you have a fair ratio. So when people say, "I'm the MVP, how did this person get the drop?" I mean, you probably most of the time don't get the drop as the MVP, because you might have the highest chance, but that chance might only be 25-30%. So that's how that system works. But I do want to get the full rates out at some point. I just haven't had much chance. I mean, in the last 2 days, I've probably spent an hour at my desk because I've been so busy with other things and meetings and whatnot. Yeah, it's a bit of a mad rush.
Cool. I think that's quite a lot of insight players didn't have previously, and we can try to include that when we do publish the rates as well. This is I guess, a discussion topic to end with. Agent Trap asks, how does the team feel about best in slot items being untradable? Do you think that those that have done more should have more as game design?
Usually that is the case anyway. If you have a twisted bow, it's usually because you worked for it, not because you
Staked money and was able to buy one.
I was about to say that, but yeah, usually it's because you earned it. I don't really mind things being untradable because obviously there is that aspect of you've also worked for it, like Barrow's gloves. But it's a good balance because it also makes it good to aim for that item and do like varied content rather than just I'm just going to do tons of quests until I get this item, or I'm just going to grind this thing for however many hours like a Vorkath head.
I think that's the core point. Assuming you don't just get lucky at jewellery or anything, you still earn it. But if it's tradable, you earn it in a flexible manner, right? So as you said, you can do varieties of content. You can go and make money at God Wars, you can go and make money at Chambers of Xeric. While if it's something like, I mean, we've got examples in game already, Barrow's gloves, you have to earn them. It's nice to have some things that you have to directly earn, you have to do certain things to get. Elite Void, same thing, you have to do certain activities, but they are very specific. You have to go and grind pest control for 15 hours or however long it does take. So I think a mix is about right. It's the right way to go, to be honest.
And also if it's a tradable item, it's also good because it makes it so that you want to go kill that boss for that item and it will be valuable because it is best in slot most of the cases.
Yeah.
Makes it worth going again as well. Once you've really got the item and a spare or two, it's still worth going because you can get more and sell them.
Almost, I mean, all the bosses in game, generally it's about getting the unique loots and selling them if you're a normal account. So if they were all untradable, you would get them, that would be it. You wouldn't have any purpose to do them. It gives a strong purpose to do these pieces of content.
A way around that could be if you have a boss and then a quest with it, which gives you an item. What could happen is the item that you're given is a precursor, and you actually get the item to make the powerful weapon from the boss. So you still get the money from killing the boss, but then your best in slot weapon you still need to do the quest for.
Maybe you could do that, yeah. Best of both worlds.
Okay, but we feel like we've got a good balance anyway. I mean, we have the fact that you can go and buy Twisted Bow if you want, but if you want an Infernal Cape, you have to go and complete the Inferno. I think that's all about what we've got time for. Certainly all the questions I've got on this tablet anyway. So, are there any other points we've missed? Does anyone notices and stuff? If not, I guess we'll say goodbye, and thanks for watching. A reminder, I guess, no game update tomorrow, but you'll have one again next Thursday, the 16th.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for watching.